Warning, listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. Everyday entrepreneurs and small business owners, I'm talking about smart and talented people who are really good at what they do, whether it's producing a product or providing a service that creates real value in the marketplace. They fail. And why? Because it takes more than having an entrepreneurial spirit. It takes more than having a great product or service. It takes sales. Just about any business in any industry, whether it's selling products or providing services, it needs sales to succeed. And one of the biggest obstacles facing new entrepreneurs and business owners is discovering that they may not be so good at actually selling what it is that they are so good at creating or doing. And it's one of the biggest reasons that businesses fail, even though their product or service is fantastic. Well, today my guest is Tish Times. She's the author of Networking is Not a One-Night Stand, a guide for lasting business relationships, and the founder of Biz School, a business school that teaches a systematic, sincere, and effective approach to networking and sales to produce lucrative bottom line results. So with that, Tish Times, welcome to Influencers Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are excited when they hear what you have to say because you're really putting a spotlight on a big problem facing so many entrepreneurs, and that's selling. But what's so refreshing and powerful about your approach is that you self-admittedly were not a natural-born salesperson when you got started. So I'd like to kick this off by asking how someone who is uncomfortable with selling finds themselves as a sales and networking expert.
Well, thank you for for bringing that up, because I think when people either hear me from stage or come into the program, they say things like, well, this comes natural to you and you're so confident, so you're able to do this. And that was not the case most of my young adult life. Number one, I struggled with confidence. Seriously struggled with confidence. And then number two, I was really comfortable in my cubicle. I used to work in a staffing company. I was really comfortable in my cubicle making phone calls for people who were looking for jobs. Super easy for me. And I had a manager who basically saw something in me, and she tricked me into going into sales. She created a position for me, called it like a performance manager, tried to, make me believe that I was going to be a liaison between the sales and the operations staff. So long story short, I started going on more sales calls with the sales professionals so that I could understand what they do. And little by little, I started doing more of those sales myself and realized that I wasn't quite selling. I was just getting to know people, building relationships. And once I figured out that it was just about relationship building, being really consistent, really authentic, I was really good at it. And so that's kind of how I got into sales. The biggest obstacles that I had to overcome was myself, my own fears, my own mindset and thoughts around sales. And once I was able to kick that out of my mind, it was something that I love to do, and I love to do to this day, Jack.
And, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that, like I say, a lot of people face those same obstacles, those same fears or discomfort around sales. And unfortunately, some of the people that do make that decision, I'm going to have to get out of my comfort zone. I'm going to have to learn how to do it. It seems like a lot of them, they go to someone to learn how to become good salespeople. But what it really seems like is they went to the school on how to become obnoxious.
Yes.
And I have to bring up your book, Networking is Not a One-Night Stand. Seems to be, to me, it's a blueprint of what not to do. Especially if you look at the table of contents, that's what it is. And it seems like that's exactly what people learn to do. They learn how to become obnoxious and put pressure on people and really, and they're not being genuine to themselves, and it's certainly not helping them in their sales process. So let's talk about that. What do you see are some of those biggest mistakes that people are making when they start going through that sales process?
Yeah, I think that for many people, they might be physically there, but the person who's running the show is their 8-year-old self. That person was afraid of rejection, afraid of people not liking them, that no one was going to want to play with them. So in an effort to get someone to quote unquote like them, they start, talking. And I always say when you're talking too much, you're not clear. You don't know how to clearly articulate what you do and what you have to offer. And I really believe that we get in our own way when we don't believe that we can, we have exactly what we need, exactly what that person needs, rather. And we began to just talk and talk and talk. We feel like we have to be someone who we're not based on what we think about sales. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word sales? Everyone who's listening can probably see in their head that sleazy, used car salesperson, right? And I come against that because I have a son who sells cars and he's really good. But if we can stop thinking, okay, this is what a salesperson is, therefore this is who I have to be. Instead, think of, this is someone I want to get to know. This is someone I want to help. Instead of thinking about how I can get their credit card out of their wallet, I want to think about how can I be of service to this person? How can I truly help them to get from where they are to where they ultimately want to be? And it changes the whole dynamic of the conversation. So now we're not being that obnoxious person who, drives people crazy and stalks people until they just don't want to hear from them anymore.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that does seem like what a lot of people do, that's their sales training. And I forgot who said it. And maybe who said it, that sales isn't something that you do to someone. It's something you do for someone. And I think that those seem to be the most successful salespeople that have that kind of attitude. And it's certainly, in line with what you're helping people to discover and integrate. And one of the things I really love is you use that word process. That sales is a process and not necessarily a tactic. Can you kind of walk through what that process is? And I know that, in your book, you talk about that because you talk about that building the relationships, and it's not something that obviously you flip a switch on. So kind of walk us through that process and really those critical steps that people need to recognize as they're going through that.
Absolutely. I think one of the first things, and I feel like if we don't get this part right, the rest of it falls apart anyway, is to identify who your ideal client really is. Many people think, what I sell, anyone can buy. I sell makeup, everyone has a face. And I've heard those things before. And I disagree because if we're not really clear on who our ideal client really is, we're going to, number one, sell to the wrong people. We're going to find ourselves hearing no frequently, whereas there are people who are looking for you. So that's the first thing, figuring out and getting really clear on your ideal client. And then finding out what do they really need? What's keeping them awake at night? What are the things that they're struggling with the most so that you can speak to those things and provide that solution that they're already looking for. They're Googling. I always say you want to be Googleable. You want someone to be up at night online looking for you, not knowing that they're looking for you. And so when you are that clear, now you know how to communicate that service, that product that you provide for your ideal clients. That the third thing I would think, Jack, is really getting serious about being of service. And that's something that I think people struggle with, because when we're trying to make payroll, when we're trying to pay rent on our office space, or we're trying to pay our mortgage, we're not thinking about serving someone. We're thinking about how can I make some money? How can I get someone to pay me, right? And if we can take ourselves out of the equation, I always say, don't always say, I want to make $1 million. Instead, think, I want to help 1 million people, because it really does take us out of the way of stopping ourselves. Because when I want to help someone, I'm literally on the search for how can I help them. When I'm reading magazine articles, I'm thinking, oh my God, I just talked to Joe. He mentioned needing this. Let me forward this to him. Let me get this information in front of him. If I'm talking and I'm in a networking group and I hear people chatting about something that one of my clients or my friends sells, I'm on the phone in the car going, hey girl, you need to call this person. They were talking about what you have to offer. And so being of service creates a way where we become magnetic. And now instead of us feeling like I'm stalking them to get them to pay me, I'm calling them in order to provide something that they're already looking for, that they need. And now I'm a resource for them. And then, of course, there's all the nuts and bolts of it as well. And we can definitely talk about that, the creating a pipeline and knowing how to, make prospecting calls and all of those things that most sales training teaches those things and those things only. The thing that I think we leave out is the mindset, the behavior, the sales behavior, the ability to serve and not feel like you only have to sell, and then knowing how to nurture that relationship so that not only does it create a great sale, but it creates what I call generational business. You ever had a realtor that when you bought a house that you told your son about it when your son got old enough to buy a house, and you told your aunts and your uncles and your nephews about it? So we want to create such a relationship that it doesn't only happen in one transaction. It actually continues to feed your business because of the way you approached it. And we can go on and on. I could talk about this all day, so I'll stop there. But there's a lot to just beyond the nuts and bolts, the CRMs, the pipeline, the follow-up, which is important. But I think there's pieces that we miss that cause us to miss those opportunities as well.
Yeah, and it sounds like that all those things, while are necessary, don't even come to play without that foundation of the relationship there. And one of the interesting things I'm learning here from you is I know a lot of people, when they want to learn how to do sales, they come and say, well, I need to know what to say. What do I say? What do I say? And it sounds to me like you don't know what to say until you listen first, right?
Right. We do an exercise in some of my courses, and it's super simple. It's like, sell me this banana, right? And then we'll ask them, put the banana on the plate on the table and have two people kind of role play through trying to sell this banana. And it baffles me that so frequently people miss the first question that they should be asking. So they go through this whole thing and say, the banana is beautiful and it's nutritious and it has potassium. They go through all of these things talking about the product, but at no time did they ever ask the person, do you like bananas? Or do you have an allergy to bananas? Somebody was like, I would buy it, but I'm allergic. So it's like we miss the person. We get so wrapped up in the sale that we miss the person. Because at the end of the day, everything that we're doing it with another person. We only see the brand, the company. But if we kind of dial it back and deal with that individual, then we'll get much further. And it'll take us a lot less time to get there in most cases.
And it sounds like to me that the way that you do this and the way that you teach people how to do this, it seems like it's probably a lot more comfortable for someone to do than trying to turn them into that kind of hard pressure salesperson.
Absolutely correct. Something that one of the things that we say around here a lot is learn how to rock your shell. So frequently people will say, you need to get out of your shell. You need to become this other person, basically, is what I feel like they're saying. Whereas we're like, rock your shell, figure out, this is who I am. This is how I operate. How do I figure out ways to be most helpful and most successful and ultimately most profitable, being who I already am? Now, will you have to learn more? Will you have to get a little uncomfortable? Absolutely. But I think when we teach people, especially in the sales world, that you have to be someone else, it's always going to be difficult for them because they don't know how to be someone else. They only know how to be who they are. And I love being able to teach them that they can be who they are and still be wildly successful when they learn how to communicate in a way that serves the person that they're trying to, that they really do want to serve. The person that they're called to help can be better suited, if you will, if they're able to communicate in a way that helps them and gets that message across.
Well, I'd like to go back for a second here to your book, that networking is not a one night stand, because I think that the way that you put that analogy is really powerful. And I think people can can clearly see that. And some of the chapters, I just want to bring up, stop asking for quickies. You said you were going to call, your relationship persona. I think so many people, maybe sheepishly, understand very quickly what you're talking about. But one of the chapters that really stuck out to me is that don't allow fear of rejection to get you rejected. And I think fear of rejection, it can be so crippling to people that are trying to engage in that sales process. And it seems to me it's the people that learn to accept that they will face rejection. Right? It's not if, it's when and how often. So maybe you can help a lot of people out right here with that. What do you do to acknowledge and that's going to happen and to overcome that fear of rejection?
Well, first, when we go to a situation, we come to a sales conversation, we come to a networking event with that fear of rejection already on our minds, people can sense that. And we come across that way. We don't come across as welcoming and ready to listen. We come across with that kind of almost desperation. I always say desperation stinks and people can smell it a mile away. And if we come to a conversation like that, it does come across in the way that we're communicating. So that's the first thing, is like find a way to figure out, okay, where's the root of that? Where's that coming from? And how do I deal with that? And I mean, and seriously, sometimes clients will come to me and they're still dealing with things that happened with their childhood, with most of us are, right? And so once we can get to the root of that and figure out, okay, I'm going to come with a different attitude. I'm going to approach the situation expecting people to want what I have to offer, believing it in enough myself so that I can communicate it to where people see that value. That's huge. Because I think when we expect that rejection, we get it, right? We often get what we're going. My kids used to always say, you have what you say, because they're talking about like faith. And so as sales professionals, as business owners, people in this field, we have what we say, we have what we expect in many cases, not necessarily just because we said it, but because our attitude, our behavior is also giving off those vibes that I don't really believe that you want to buy from me. I don't really believe that I can earn your business. And because of that, we also self-sabotage. So that fear of rejection often causes us not to ever make the call, never to ever ask for the sale, never to even show up to the networking event. So that fear of rejection gets us rejected, not because that person rejects us, but because many times we don't show up, we don't come prepared, we don't communicate our value in such a way to where people really do want to be around us. They really do want to work with us, and we can do better. And I know how that works because I've done it myself.
All right. So let's say I'm Tish, I get it. I know there's something I need to do. Everything you do makes sense, but I walk into a networking event or in a sales situation. Well, here comes that lump in my throat. Here comes that knot in my stomach. Are there any techniques to get over that? Or is it something that it's just, you got to push through, or it's, it subsides over time, or you learn to ignore it over time?
There are some things that I do. They may or may not work for everyone. I'll tell you a couple of things that have worked for me really well. I do something called I am statements. And some people might say, yeah, saying the same thing to yourself, it's, a bunch of, hooey or whatever. But I believe that what we say to ourselves frequently is what we believe. And we believe what we say to ourselves way more than what others say to ourselves. So I could walk up to someone and say, you're amazing, you're awesome. And in your own mind, you're still saying, I suck, I can't do this, no one's going to believe me. Guess which one you're going to believe, right? And so before I get into any situation, before I came on this, because I still get nervous. I deal with this every single day. Before I came on this podcast, I began to speak these words. I want to be able to say something that's going to be beneficial to these listeners. I get myself in that state of mind before I enter anything that I believe has a huge potential impact, whether it's a sales conversation, where it's an interview, whatever that case might be. So if you were in my office, you would see a big poster board that has probably a good 200 I am statements on it. They're written like art, so they're kind of cute the way they're written. But I look at that frequently. It's right in front of me so that I could say these things to myself before I get on the call, before I pick up the phone. I am, I am of high value. What I have to offer, people need. And so that's one of the things that I might do. The other thing is sometimes I just have to do it afraid. The first six-figure deal that I was able to close, I remember sitting in an office in a conference room with a large company, and my knees were knocking under the table. However, I was very well prepared. And that time I just had to do it afraid. I said my I am statements and I was still freaking out, right? So you get past it in the sense of, okay, I've gotten through these doors, I've gotten this call, I've gotten this opportunity. There are times you have to do it afraid, and you have to do it often, because those fears do not go away by doing it once every now and then. I have to stay in front of people. Do I get nervous every time? Yep. But I got to keep doing it, and I get better and better at it, and I close more and more deals because of it. So think about what you're thinking about. What are you saying to yourself before you enter those conversations, those opportunities?
Well, I think that's one of the reasons I consider you an influencer in this space, is because, you tell it like it is. You let people know that they're going to have to face those fears, face that lump in the throat, that there's no, magic pill to make it go away. And I think that so many people, they think as long as they keep collecting trainings or ideas or something, that they're progressing, when it's not really progressing. And the stuff that you teach and the way that you teach it is very actionable. If you had to give someone that one game changing tip that would help them to close sales faster and develop that repeatable process and stop collecting information on sales, what would that be?
I believe it is action. A friend of mine, we're getting together, we're doing a conference, and it's called Unstoppable Drastic Action Conference. It's designed for people to take action. I always believe that if we rely on, like you said, gathering information, taking more trainings, or only using like email and social media to think they're going to close sales, they're probably going to stay in that place of disappointment. I believe we have to have a system for profit producing activities, so that every single day, I don't sit on my desk and think, okay, what do I do today? It's like I have a system. I know what I need to do. I knew the 5 top things that I should be doing every single day to produce profit, new profit in my business every single day, so that it becomes literally automatic at some point. So creating a system is probably the biggest game-changing tip that I can give. And it is easier than one might think. And it's that repeatable thing that we do every single day that's going to change the way we do business. I always say, if I watch what you do for 5 days, I can tell you where you're going to be in 5 years based on your current activity.
That is amazing, because I think a lot of people fool themselves into thinking that they're, I call it stacking BBs. It's activity, you're doing something, but it's not really accomplishing anything. Right. In the end. And I think a lot of people do that with networking. I know that one of your focuses is on networking. I think a lot of people get networking at a very shallow level, meaning I need to show up to where other people are. And that's about the extent that they get to it. So, what are some of those things to networking with purpose? And I know we're in a very unique times right now where networking is done in a very different way. And maybe you can touch a little bit on that, on how the adjustments that can be made. But what is the difference between networking and just showing up and being one of the crowd?
That's a great question. I love that question, because you're right. Frequently people just show up, and, we will say things like, showing up is half the battle. And I agree, showing up is important. However, if you don't have a pre-event plan, a system around how you're going to prepare for that event, one of the things that I love to see people do, I teach this, is to create a pre-game, if you will, pre-networking game plan. And that might be figuring out who's going to be at the event that you're attending, online or offline. And depending on the type of organization you're going to, you may be able to get that information online. You may have to call the coordinator of that event to figure out who potentially might be there, and then trying to do some connections in advance of that event so that when you get there, it's purposefully done. So I know I want to meet 3 people, and the 3 people I need to meet are going to be there. I'm going to connect with them and try to schedule. Okay, we're going to both be at the same event. Can we sit at the same table? I'd love to ask you a couple of questions, or I'd love to, introduce you to someone who I believe you need to know. That's a really powerful one because people don't say no to that. And then having in the room, what is my strategy? Why am I there? What do I want to accomplish? How many people do I want to meet? And then having a post-game routine. So it's like now my follow-up starts, and follow-up does not begin and end with the email. It has to be a voice connection, a Zoom call, a telephone call, something to really begin to solidify that relationship. And so when people just show up, they might sit with their friends, they might hang out and have a social connection, but they're not using networking as the entry point to the sales process, which I believe it really can be.
And so, I wanted to talk about the other extreme too, because there's those people that just show up, but then there's some other people that think that go to the other extreme in the fact that they think that networking is the sales process. And you say the networking is the entry point to a sales process. And I know that can be a kind of a delicate balance there, because from your philosophy, networking is something that you do to allow the sales process to kind of naturally happen. Can you talk about the difference to those extremes and how to avoid, falling into that, trying to turn the networking into the sales process?
Absolutely. That's the whole reason I wrote that book, because it's literally like if I were to go to, have dinner or sit somewhere and just kind of gather myself, and someone walked up to me and just said, hey, and began to talk to me about deeper things, let's just say, right, that they don't have permission to talk to me about yet. I'm like, get to know, what's my middle name? Do you know anything about me before you begin to progress the relationship that far? I believe when we try to use networking as the sales process, that's what we're doing. We're walking up to someone and we're basically saying, hey, let me get your hotel room key, instead of taking the time to woo them, right? To get to know them, to understand who they are, what do they want, what's their favorite color, find out something about that potential client before you try to sell them, because the likelihood is if you try to ask for that sell too early, you're going to miss it altogether, because that person's either going to be offended, you're going to come across too harsh, too strong, and they're not going to return your calls when you do finally get back to your office and you start making your follow-up calls. So if we utilize networking, as I said, as the entry point, it's like I'm doing my homework right now. I'm figuring out, number one, is this someone I want to hang out with? Is this someone that's an ideal client for me? And then I always say the person that has the best questions wins the game. So I'm going to ask the right questions and figure out, what are they looking for? What do I even have that they might be in need of? And then now we start having those deeper conversations, which ultimately, if done well, can lead to the sale.
So I can see, right now, just talking to you, that someone could leave a networking event or somewhere where they've just met you, and you may not have discussed selling at all, but they're going to leave there remembering Tisch, right? I guess that you have a gift, or what it seems like, or you've developed these methods to become memorable in these networking events. So do your programs, do you have something that both types of people can benefit from? One, the wallflowers, right? That just go to the networking. And then the other people that have tried networking, but gosh, it seems like people just run the other way when they see me.
Right. Yeah.
They know. Do you have something that both of those extremes can benefit from and really change the way that their sales process is working?
Absolutely. So I have something called Biz School, and I love Biz School for a couple of reasons. It's basically a business school focused on profitable networking and sales strategies. And I don't always say these out loud, but Biz School is based on two types of clients that I know I attract. One is introvert Irene, and introvert Irene is that person, like you mentioned, that's going to go to the event, probably isn't going to talk to many people, is going to walk away feeling like networking doesn't work because they didn't have the proper preparation. They didn't feel the confidence necessary to have those conversations, and therefore they're missing opportunities. Then the other one is Networking Nancy. And Networking Nancy is at all the events, and she's very outgoing and in some cases might be a little gregarious, where people really love spending time with her, but she's not making any money in her business. She doesn't have a system in place to be able to follow up effectively, to really be able to capitalize on all those events that she's going to. And so Biz School is really designed to help both the introverts, Irenes of the world, and the networking Nancy's of the world, so that the areas where they need to build confidence and build that strategy, they can. The areas where they need to take all of that activity and create some profitable routines around it, they can also do that. So that's where we help people that come with both of those different personality or networking types.
Yeah, you actually you run your own networking community, correct?
Right. It is a professional networking organization called Network in Action. I was really trying to figure out ways to, number one, grow my local market, as well as have some structured events for some of my clients that are elsewhere. We have both a crowd coaching group and a full-on networking group that allows me to work with people from all over. And we meet on a monthly basis, and it teaches all of these strategies as well as allows them to be able to refer business to each other so that they can grow their business.
And I mentioned before, we're living in a rapidly changing world. Are there the elements of this, for people that need to figure out how to do this on a virtual level versus a face-to-face, belly-to-belly kind of a relationship building?
Yeah, absolutely. So when COVID hit, I had to shift my business as well. And I've always done an element of my business online. So it wasn't new to me, but it was new to the people who were coming in, who were saying, yeah, I'd love to join your group, but you said that you network face to face. Well, now not many people are networking face to face. So I've been able to teach people, and I think our organization does a great job as well, as teaching people how to utilize this new virtual environment to still connect deeply, to still utilize all of the things that I've been talking about thus far, and how to be present, because that's a problem. When people are in a virtual environment, for some reason, they think that they don't have to be fully present. They're looking up other things on the background, they're playing with their cat or whatever. So teaching them how to be memorable, how to be present, and how to get new business still in the virtual environment.
Well, I have to say, selling without selling, that's to me, in a nutshell, what it is that you do. And I think that's exactly what a lot of people are looking for, without maybe knowing how to verbalize that. But it sounds like that's exactly what they're able to do with you. How would someone find out more about Tish Times and how to get involved with some of these opportunities that you have to learn how to do this?
The best way is to go to tishtimes.com. And there's a contact form if someone wants to schedule some time. There's a place to do that. All of our information is there. And on social, I am Tish Times on all the major social media, platforms. So connect with me. I'd love to chat with you. We do have there's no you don't have to buy anything. I can't think of my words right now. You don't have to buy anything, but you definitely can ask questions, do what we call a networking and sales assessment, and you can get that at tishtimes.com.
All right. And I also want to mention your book one more time. How can folks get that? It's available on Amazon.
Yeah, it's available at amazon.com. You can get it on my website as well, but Amazon is probably the fastest way for you to get it directly to you.
Okay, very good. Well, we'll put the link on there on the show notes as well. Tish, I got to say, it's been a real joy having you on. And I think if people are really paying attention, they'll see that the process that you're so good at and that you teach, you've actually demonstrated, I think, today, with the information that you provided and I think anyone that needs what you have has figured that out very quickly without you, I guess, to be crude, shoving it down their throats, right? And to me, that's just one of the greatest examples, is to be able to see that in action. So I appreciate you doing that and being so free, sharing so freely some of these methods and tactics.
Jack, one thing I will say, there's a free networking handbook that kind of sums up a lot of what we talked about today and much more. It's free on the website as well. So if you're listening, make sure you grab your free networking handbook.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Tish, once again, thank you for coming on. You're truly an influencer in my book, because just the fact that you weren't a natural born salesperson. And like I said, you give hope to a lot of those entrepreneurs that are really good and provide a lot of value with their products and services that are just missing that sales process. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, there you have it. Definitely, you need to check out Tish Times, tishtimes.com. And she provides plenty of value. The site is packed full of value. Check that out. And we'll have some of those links to her book and the other information she mentioned right there on the show notes. So until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today.